All right, guys. So our final topic, again, this is actually going to be topics plural because I'm wrapping this all into one. There's been some Star Wars developments, and then traditionally at the end of every episode here, when there is something for us to do a review, like for instance, I'll give you a quick for instance. When WandaVision was airing, and then when Falcon and Winter Soldier was airing, and Mandalorian was on season 2, and all that good stuff, we would give our weekly review at the end of every episode because then we could give a quick spoiler warning. It's the last little bit of the show. We're going to be doing the same thing, obviously. We've been doing the same thing with the Bad Batch. So at the end of this segment, I'll cue you up to win if you haven't seen the Bad Batch. So there's like 3 Star Wars related stories that are leading into this, but then after that, we're going to get into our Bad Batch episode 4 spoiler review. So that is coming up. But first off, this is actually a pretty funny story, and it's good, but it's actually pretty funny in the sense that the internet kind of like freaked out, at least as far as Star Wars fandom goes. And also a quick shout out too, while we were off the record button here, when we were off stream, not off stream, but when we weren't recording, old Zombie Shinigami subscribed. So shout out to Zombie
Thank you.
Shinigami, and thanks for the sub there. You popped up on the screen, but I wasn't recording at the time, so we saw you. We're here. That's why you get the shout out. But Dave Filoni, everyone freaked out because our boy Dave Filoni, and if you don't know who Dave Filoni is, you're obviously not a Star Wars fan, so I'll fill you in on it. But he was pretty much the closest thing that you would have as an apprentice. Like, how back in the day you'd go and try to be a leather worker, and you'd have like a master leather worker, and then you'd have your apprentice, and you'd do an apprenticeship, and then you'd get the job. And nowadays that's called a master's degree, and you got to spend $50,000+ on
He
it.
was a Padawan, is what you're saying. A Padawan.
That's a good way to put it in Star Wars terms. He was the Padawan to George Lucas as the Jedi Master, or the Sith Lord. Rule of 2 would also fit because there's only 2 people who know Star Wars to that degree, like to any degree. Like is George Lucas and Dave Filoni. Those are the 2 guys. You don't know nothing. You don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. We wish we knew something, but so Dave Filoni has pretty much since the prequel era. It was really it all happened. He's told the story before, but it all happened when they decided to develop the Clone Wars animated series. He ended up getting that job, meeting with George Lucas, but then from there on out, he was under his direct. He was a direct Padawan, a master, an apprentice situation between the 2. So he is the guy. So Star Wars fans for the longest time have wanted, Dave Filoni to have like a bigger role in like just Lucasfilm in general and all that sort of stuff. And everyone kind of freaked out because like this news broke that he'd become the new like executive producer, what was it, executive creative director of Lucasfilm. Like a new job title, been promoted to this. But funnily enough, this wasn't even new. This actually happened a year ago. So it's still good news, but it's not like new news, which this article goes into to further describe. So this apparently was just more of a clerical error. So this happened like a year ago. He got this new job title as like the executive creative director for Lucasfilm. But everyone thought it was like yesterday. So everyone was freaking out and was all happy and stuff. But I have to like kind of not to poo-poo on people's parades. Like Kathleen Kennedy is still in the George Lucas role of Lucasfilm right now. So just because Dave Filoni has got this job, Kathleen Kennedy still runs Lucasfilm. So this is good news. And it's not necessarily bad news for anybody who like is on the hate Kathleen Kennedy train. Because go look at Kathleen Kennedy's resume and then come back to me and tell me how many bad movies were on there. Because I know The Last Jedi: Rise of Skywalker will be a part of your bad list. But then go look at the rest of the movies. Like she was a perfect fit for the job. Didn't work out well. Happens all the time. It is what it is. She hasn't run the company very well, but she was a good pick for if she went to interview, her resume kind of spoke for itself. And let's put it that way. Doesn't always work out very well though. Just kind of is what it is. But I'm happy to see Dave Filoni in a more just more predominant role in the Star Wars world in general. And,
as he should be.
Yeah, as he should be. He's because, like I said, it's not just a fun like thing to say that he was like the Padawan to George Lucas. Like he really was. Like nobody knows more about Star Wars and the characters within the realm of Star Wars than Dave Filoni does. Like, he knows he knows what would happen, why it would happen, who it would affect if a character did this. Like if in the prequel era, if the Separatists went to do this, he could tell you what systems that would affect. To the Republic side of things and whatever. Like he's the guy. Like, so him having a bigger role is great. Now, I don't like, everyone always wants him just to be like the leader of Lucasfilm and stuff. Go watch the best thing I can say to anybody who is like, I would almost describe it as like over supporting Dave Filoni in a lot of ways, because I love Dave Filoni. Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy to see that he's directing live action stuff with Mandalorian now, for instance, and then has this new predominant title. Lucasfilm is great. But go watch, I think it was the first behind the scenes what do they call that thing for the Mandalorian? Like the behind the scenes thing they did at the end of the
gallery.
season. Yeah, go watch the gallery thing on Disney Plus, because Dave Filoni himself says that like his first day on set, he didn't know what to do. Like, he was so far out of his comfort zone. He had never directed live action before, and he was just very excited and very happy that he had somebody like Jon Favreau there to guide him and teach him everything that he knows, because like he was not up to task. Like, and this is Dave Filoni admitting this stuff. Like, we know Dave Filoni's great, and we put faith in Dave Filoni, but he's a human being, and he had never done live action directing before. So, like, it only makes sense that he has no experience doing it. So I'm always confused as to why people just want him to go take on a leadership position running the company at Lucasfilm. That's not what he does. He's a creative guy. Like, he's literally...
It's a good point.
Like, he's not someone who has been like Bob Iger, who ran Disney. He didn't go and make a bunch of movies. Like, it's a completely different job. He didn't start out as a director.
Creative director is exactly where he needs to be.
Him having a creative leadership position at Lucasfilm is perfect. And maybe one day, now that he's in a more executive position at the company, maybe one day he could take over Lucasfilm altogether. But be a little bit reasonable. Like, when you get a job somewhere, you don't just go to the top immediately, unless you're born into it in America, right? And that's pretty much the only time that happens. But in normal circumstances, you start from the bottom and you work your way up. Like, and he's on the right path. And I'm very happy for him. Like, I just recently started rewatching Clone Wars, so like, I'm really happy to see this just how far he's come. I've been watching Mandalorian. I think in season 2 of Mandalorian, speaking of which, that Ahsoka episode that he directed,
perfect,
phenomenal.
It was so good.
It was very good. Way better than the episodes of the first season that he directed, which just goes to prove his own point that like he's learning more and he's getting better at everything he's doing. And same, you can go watch Clone Wars and see that happen too. Like, as that show goes on, it just gets better and better and better. Like, so I'm excited.
I got to jump in and play devil's advocate just for a second here. Like,
what you got?
I understand Kathleen Kennedy has a good resume, and I understand that she's done a lot of good stuff. But the way that the sequel movies were constructed and the way that they ended up discarding all of George Lucas's vision for the sequel trilogy, I think the fans that want Dave Filoni to take Kathleen Kennedy's position, I think what they're at least to some degree. I mean, there are some that are just like, yeah, just put Dave Filoni in there. I think what they're more upset about or frustrated with is the lack of... Dave Filoni has from everything he's done, he seems to have an understanding of what makes Star Wars Star Wars.
1000%.
Exactly.
He seems to embody the spirit of Star Wars for a very philosophical way of putting it, I guess. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't. Kathleen Kennedy seems to be an executive who looks at things like market trends and market data and constructs things that appeal to a wide audience and which I understand from Disney's side. Yes, we want somebody in the position that's going to give us the best chance at making the most amount of money from this franchise.
Oh, hold on though, too, because I know we were going with that. I just want to add, when George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, it was in his clause, his demand was that Kathleen Kennedy runs Lucasfilm. It was George's idea.
George picked her?
Yeah, George picked her.
It was
It was part of the contract.
Okay. Well, I'm surprised to hear that. I don't like that's.
I think a lot of people were like, yeah.
That's well. I mean, she had been the lead on the Harry Potter film franchise, correct?
Yeah, I think she was credited for that and Jurassic Park and a ton of stuff.
I'm pretty sure that was one of the things at the time. Like a lot of people were really excited because, well, I personally can't get past the first two enough to get to the good ones. Apparently, never got into the Harry Potter
are
movies.
better as they go on.
That's what everybody tells me, but yet I can't get past 1 and 2 to ever get to them. So maybe one day I'll just skip them and start with 3.
Start with the last two.
That's yeah. But anyway, she's gotten a lot of. I know she got at the time when at least I was reading about the acquisition and what she was going to do. She had a ton of kudos because of how well she had taken such a beloved Harry Potter franchise and translated it into the movies and how well the movies had done. And I just think that the like, the decision to abandon George's story, and it'll be interesting in 20, 30, 40 years when we're well beyond all this to get a tell-all book from her or somebody behind the scenes as to why Disney didn't do that, who was actually calling the shots. I mean, maybe it didn't come from her. Maybe she did the best with the hand
Bob
that she
Iger.
was dealt.
It was Bob Iger actually has it was in his autobiography. Yeah.
He said, don't do the George Lucas stuff.
Yeah, it was in his autobiography.
He instructed her. Okay, so maybe that's where the blame for a lot of this does. Maybe she did the best with the hand that she was dealt. But I think it's more the fans that are calling for her to be removed and Filoni to be put in her place. I think they want somebody that embodies the spirit of Star Wars, just as Kevin Feige seems to have found the spirit of the Marvel universe, and he's the head. So, while Filoni may not have the executive experience that you would hope for in that position, I think the feeling from a lot of fans is that, and myself included to a certain degree, is that Filoni seems to get what makes Star Wars, and I wish that there was somebody like him. I wish that he was given the opportunity to be the Kevin Feige of the Star Wars universe, because I feel like that's a very important component to that position.
Exactly, and that's the position he's in and has been in for the last year. Because he's now his quote unquote new title is Executive Creative Director at Lucasfilm. That means he's calling all the shots as far as the creative side of things
that's
go.
Good. That's what I think.
That's exactly like as you described. That's the position he's actually in. Because the position that he wouldn't. Because that's the thing too.
Kathleen Kennedy is president of Lucasfilm, so she's not just the Star Wars universe. She's everything that's under the Lucasfilm banner.
Exactly. Okay. Which anymore is primarily Star Wars, because they have Indiana Jones and they have this Lord of Bones thing coming out at some point. I think it's called something that has to do with bones. But
something bones.
It's something with bones. Yeah, I don't know I forget what it's called. It's some book adaptation. But to play devil's advocate to what you were saying, and just so it doesn't sound like I'm just defending Kathleen Kennedy by any means, because she has run Lucasfilm terribly. Like, I do not support anything she's done with it. Like, the way she ran the sequels was terrible.
Ran them into the ground is what she did.
Well, yeah, like she should have had the Kevin Feige approach, and I think someone like Dave Filoni, if he had been in this position, would have had a much better approach to the franchise as doing the sequels and everything, because he would have thought out the plan. Like, the idea of having like 3 different directors come in and essentially tell 3 different stories, but they all have to connect. It's a terrible idea. Like, you need to have your plan for your trilogy in place as you're making the trilogy. You can't just let anybody go in and just make it's a different person writing in a completely different movie, but it's just tying into the other one. Like, so the way she ran, at least the sequel trilogy, was not good. Like, I know for a fact if someone like Dave Filoni was there, in that position, it wouldn't have happened.
It would have turned out better.
Like, he would have anybody. It doesn't take there's a million fans out there who wouldn't have let that happen. Like, it's as simple as if you go and pitch something, it's like when she got pitched Rogue One, because this is another thing too. people don't want to give her credit for the good stuff. Like, she did greenlight Rogue One. She did greenlight Mandalorian, and it was her idea for Jon Favreau. When Jon Favreau pitched her Mandalorian, and bear in mind, and being the head of Lucasfilm, she probably gets thousands of Star Wars pitches like a day or a week.
Oh God, yeah.
But like, so she listened to Favreau, liked his idea, and it was her idea for him to go and get Dave Filoni to work with him on it. So like, she recognized how good Dave Filoni would be. I mean, in any position associated with that show. Like, so it was like her idea to get Filoni on Mandalorian with Jon Favreau. So like, she's had a couple wins. I consider Force Awakens a win. Even though Solo didn't do good, I still thought it was a good movie, but I don't support her actually making the decision of making that movie because no one asked for it, even though it turned out good.
I thought it was great.
Solo was a good movie, but was it a good decision on her part to greenlight it? No. So like, even though it was good, she really shouldn't have greenlit it. And this is me and nobody saying this. This is don't put me in charge of your company. But just as a bystander, having seen how it all played out, obviously, you know, you have much better ways of telling people how they should have done something. Everybody does, right? But I don't feel like Dave Filoni would, if he was in a position like this back then, I don't think a lot of these things would have happened. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing, like, and you, like you said, like, Kathleen Kennedy is an executive, and like all the things that you described, like an executive doing, like the market research and all this stuff, like 100%. And that's what Dave Filoni is like not trained for. Like, him being a creative director for Lucasfilm, meaning like he has an actual say in like where stories are going to go, to greenlight projects and be a part of them and get people that he like would actually handpick to work on them at this point. Like, that's exactly what I think everybody wants. But they're just, I think a lot of people are just so on the fire Kathleen Kennedy train that they don't take a minute to actually see that, like, that's not really what the problem is. The problem was the creative direction of everything. And with someone like Dave now being in that position, that's good news. That's exactly where Dave Filoni should be.
Yeah.
Because at this point, anything that, you know, presumably speaking, who knows how it's all actually working all behind doors? Because obviously, because of the money aspect of everything, if he approves of an idea, he would still need to go to Kathleen Kennedy to get her end-all sign-off on it. But she put someone in a position like this to weed out all the dumb ideas and pick the good ones. So, Star Wars is in a better place with this happening, 100%, in my opinion. Like, Dave Filoni should absolutely be he's the only person, like I said, man, starting off. He was the Padawan to George Lucas.
Right.
George Lucas is out of the equation. Now he's the master.
Like, now I am the master.
This is a Sith, man. There's only two.
He does wear a lot of black.
He's a Sith Lord, dude. A Sith cowboy. Wearing that cowboy hat.
That damn cowboy hat.
Yeah, this is good news. Like 100% good news. With that, though, let's move on to these other ones real quick too, so we don't spend all the time on this, because we're gonna have to wrap this up soon. Coinciding with all of this is Rangers of the New Republic, the show that was announced back at their big Disney press holder or shareholder announcement thing. That's been canceled apparently, and it's kind of vague on as to the who, what, when, where, and why. And it's also vague as if it's like just. It says there's no longer an active development, but there's no confirmation as to whether or not it's a permanent, it's just done, and they're not going to do it anymore, or if they're just not actively doing anything to make it happen now, and they're going to do it later. My gut instinct says that it's just being scrapped, because it was never confirmed that it was going to be focused on Gina Carano and her character from Mandalorian.
I'm sure she played a big part in that, though.
Yeah, but it was pretty much assumed and rumored that like it was going to follow. It was pretty much going to be a spin-off of The Mandalorian featuring Gina Carano and maybe some other, the guy. Yeah, and the X-wing pilot guy,
Poe,
who ended up not
Poe. Yeah,
different genre, different time frame. The dude from that Canadian sitcom, the Kim's Convenience, the guy who flew in and then like at the end of one of those episodes he like gave her the ranger badge thing, that guy. It was presumably going to be like focusing on people like them, and then maybe Bill Burr's character or something along those lines. So like, would it have been cool to see something like that happen? Sure.
I would have watched it just
Yeah.
because it's Star Wars, but it wasn't anything that really like piqued my interest by any means.
100%. I would have only watched it because it was Star Wars. Like them canceling it, I don't really care about.
It didn't. Yeah, I'm not gonna
It doesn't.
lose
It
sleep.
doesn't bother me in any way, shape, or form. You cancel the Acolyte, I'm
got a
gonna be
problem.
upset.
Or
Don't-
Ahsoka or
Don't cancel Ahsoka. Don't cancel the Acolyte. Don't do that, and we're good. Like you,
Acolyte has a lot of potential.
dude. I don't know. That's the show I want. Like that I'm excited
It's
for.
because
dude.
you're a Sith Lord. but-
Yeah, that's true too. The only other thing we're obviously, do you guys want to add anything about the Rangers or anything? Because then the only other thing we got is some Bad Batch stuff. Let's talk about that. So,
The only thing I'll say about Rangers is to me it's directly because they got rid of Gina Carano. Like that was going to be her show going forward. They were clearly setting that up, coming out of what happened at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian, and it was one of the shows that was listed on their Investors Day. One of the Star Wars properties that was coming out of their Investors Day, and I have a feeling that they'll retool it somehow and bring it out in a different form, or at least have something, because I think that they have a plan in place. I mean, I'm sure they didn't just greenlight the show just for the heck of it. They probably want X number of properties or X number of they probably even have a rough timeline of, well, we were going to get Boba this fall, then we were going to get something, then we were going to get Andor, then we were going to get Rangers. And now they have a gap there from this show, from her being let go and this show not really existing in the form that they wanted it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see in a few months them announce a new show or something else that basically takes that show's place.
Yeah, and to add to that, it did kind of seem like they were trying to go the route of like, this may have been confirmed or it was just people speculating because of a lot of these things seem to be spin-offs of like Mandalorian. So like it was like kind of led to the assumption that you'd get Mando season 3, Rangers of the New Republic, then Book of Boba Fett, not in this order by any means, but then Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, and then maybe a Avengers style Mandalorian team up
Crossover.
thing
yeah,
at
they'll
some
team up.
point.
Yeah.
You know, so because I think we even
Sure.
speculated on that, and then like because of the name drop of Thrawn by Ahsoka, either Ahsoka's show is going to be based on the Thrawn thing, or Thrawn is like the MacGuffin that would lead to like the Avengers style team up. So then they all get back together to take down Thrawn or something. You know what I mean? So who
Right.
knows? I know we speculated that between us, but it made logical sense. So, you got anything you want to add, Rick? Or you want to go into Bad Batch?
We're good. Let's go Bad Batch.
All right. So season 1, episode 4 of Bad Batch also dropped this past Friday.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We will be dropping some mild spoilers. Again, I say it every week, but with this show, there still hasn't came a point where there's been this big major twist that you need to like hide away and, like WandaVision kind of ups,
There's nothing that keeps me up at night. Like, what
Yeah.
if this meant that, or
it's a fairly straightforward show. The information is presented to you, and more often than not, whatever the problem was of the day is just wrapped up at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you got like Crosshair, but
Yeah, but he's really we haven't really seen or heard from him since like episode 2.
Yeah.
Like at this point. So yeah, I'm still curious as to where, because if I had to come up with a negative for the show, it's that at this point still we don't know like where it's going. You know what I mean? Like I've said it before, but what are they going to focus on?
I
for
think
the
it's just
show?
about the development of the Empire and the falling out with the clones and all that sort of stuff. It's a way to kind of explain all that stuff that you never really got to hear about or anything.
Well, that's a part of it, but
Dude, there's
is
a
that what
majority
it's
of people
about?
out there that think stormtroopers are clones.
Right.
Like, it's so.
That's the thing. That's a part of it, but I don't know. Like they're not focusing on that, so like it's only 4 episodes in, so it's hard to say. But given the fact that the first episode was like the length of 3 episodes, you could almost say that we're what, like 6, 7 episodes in, at least as far as timing goes. Even though the first episode covered one kind of story for the most part. That's the thing I'm just curious about, because there's like all these rumors of like people thinking, like, and you've said it a couple of times, that Omega's force sensitive, or like the the Kaminoans are going to be making, like trying to make like a force sensitive clone, so they can make the clone army more relevant. And like people have been speculating that like could be the birth of Starkiller and how he's going to be brought into canon. And I think all that's just really out there. Like I could see them wanting to make a force user person, because that's the thing too. These theories kind of collide with each other. Because if people think Omega is a force user, then why do you also think the Kaminoans are trying to make a force user if they already have one? Doesn't really add up.
No.
Like, because it's like the same people are talking about these things, and it's like, why would Starkiller be made like as a clone but not exist as a person? It's just weird. Like Starkiller would have to exist first, and then like in the original lore for Starkiller, they tried cloning him like 1,000 times or something, and it all failed, and it finally worked, and that was Force Unleashed 2. So I don't know if they're going to go that route though. I don't think Starkiller is going to have anything to do with this at all.
No, not
I
even.
could see them doing the force sensitive clone thing, but they would need to find somebody who's force sensitive first to even do it.
Grogu.
And from the Grogu thing would tie into it, like, because maybe that's maybe we find out Grogu. Well, no, because Grogu was at the temple. We found
True.
that out.
Yeah.
He was a youngling. So would he have been a clone of Yoda without them knowing? You know what I mean? Did the Kaminoans clone Yoda and then just like
Get a DNA sample.
yeah, and then just have him raised as a normal? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if it's gonna tie in with like Grogu or Mando.
Grogu's gonna tie into his own big thing, I'm sure. Little guy.
Right. I don't know. John, have you caught up to this episode of Bad Batch yet? How far into? Because I know you hadn't watched it from before. You haven't caught up to it
No,
yet?
I've watched the first two, so
Mhm.
I'm 2 behind now. I've liked it. It's good. I feel like there is like just in the second episode, I felt like not having watched Clone Wars, there's stuff I'm missing. Like I felt like I was supposed to know the family in the second episode that they meet on the planet that they go to, and they're
Yeah.
trying to get the chain codes for them.
They are in Clone Wars. I just saw that episode.
Yeah, so I feel like
Mhm.
there's definitely cut. Yeah, there's something I missed by. I'm curious how much of the other stuff is gonna come along from that. So, but it's a good show. I'm enjoying it. It's just taking me a little while to get caught up.
Yeah, I like it so far. The main thing, but my main takeaway with this episode was I want this hot toy. Like I want
Droid Echo.
this. I want Droid Echo. Yeah, like this thing. This was cool, man. I really liked
I
it.
don't. That's neat, but like when you told me about it originally before I watched it, I was like, "Dude, this is gonna be cool."
Dude, he
and then I
looks
saw it, and I was
awesome.
like, "That's the same species as 9 Nub."
He just looks cool though. Like it's cooler than just the clone armor. I like it. I like it being like a more unique look than just the clone armor. I'm trying to. I don't know why I can't get like. There's one good shot of him here at the beginning, but it's not showing up. But and then we got our first look at what's her name? From
Fennec.
Mando and Book of Boba Fett, Ming-Na's character. What's her character name
Fennec
again?
Shand.
Fennec Shand. Yeah, we got Fennec was in this one. And spoiler alert for John there. Yeah,
And she voiced her too. I mean,
yeah, so
that
her
worked well.
character's back and being introduced here. So this was cool to see, but this was just I'd say if anything, this was the most fillery of episodes so far. There was little character development and nothing really progressed the show any further. Like
No.
they just needed to get repairs on their ship, and they landed here, and Fennec Shand
Shit hit the fan.
traced them or tracked them there, and then they escaped at the end, kind of thing. So there was really nothing here other than the introduction of Fennec, and that's really it. And then the Echo's droid-looking costume, like
That was cool.
I liked that.
I thought it was an interesting way to do it because like minus his face being human, obviously most of them is not.
Yeah.
So that works out well in their favor.
It's a great way for him to be disguised and like not be tracked. Like
Yeah, he didn't seem
even
too
said
happy
that.
about it.
Huh?
He didn't seem too happy about it.
Well, that one scene where they like sell him off to get money.
He's worth more.
Yeah. But I mean, in the end, like he said in the beginning, when he first like came out with that garb on, it was like they're not gonna like recognize me looking like this, and then he drops the faceplate down, and it's like true. He just looks like a droid, so that was cool. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious to find out where they're gonna go with the show. There's 16 episodes on it. I want to see more of the, and because what you're saying, Rick, is what I want the show to be. I want it to inevitably, I can't speak. We've been going on for almost 3 hours now. Like just showing the birth of the empire,
Right.
and like, I want to see if in any way this does tie into like Grogu and the steps that the Kaminoans took to make a force sensitive, clone or something. If that is a part of it, that's the stuff I want to focus on. Like, I hope they get to that and like play that through.
Yeah.
Like, not that I don't like these kind of episodes, but I really just I prefer the ones that actually have some sort of a point to it. Like the previous episode was like all character development. This one really wasn't a whole lot. Like, this was what I would describe as a filler thing, which just introduced a new character, but we
It
already
had some good scenes.
we already know the character. Oh, it was all good. It was an enjoyable episode.
Yeah, I liked
It was enjoyable. I liked it. Like even the title of the stream this past Friday was like "Bad Batch continues to impress." Like it does.
You're not wrong.
That's what the title was. So like I liked the episode, but I wouldn't say I don't know. I'd probably say it was my least favorite of the bunch so far. Or
I think
guess
honestly,
the
episode
batch.
2 was my the batch.
Worst episode of the batch, but that's still good because it was still a good episode.
I thought episode 2 was my least favorite, but
Which one? Which one was 2?
where they go to the planet to get the dude.
Chain codes.
Chain
Oh, the
They have
chain
to
code
get
one?
chain
I
codes
didn't
to get
mind
off
that one.
the.
That
wasn't
was all
bad.
character stuff, man.
Yeah.
That was like showing that dude
I-
that
I'll-
Hunter's caring for as like his own daughter and stuff. I liked all
They were
that.
Twi'leks.
Yeah, I'll say this. That episode seemed to be a little too soon in the storyline, just because, like, she's supposed to be all broken up, and he's all broken up about leaving her with this other family, but
Yeah, I
yet
agree.
they have had virtually no interactions. I
Mhm.
mean, they get her at the end of the previous episode, and already he's dropping her off. I mean, yeah, I can understand where she's like, "You guys are like me," and she knows that. And maybe it's harder on her, but there was like when they did that, because they did kind of the same story beat in the Mandalorian, where Mando tried to give Grogu to the planet when he and Cara Dune fought off the walkers. I can't remember which episode it was. He tried to leave Grogu there, but at that point they had already been in a couple of very intense situations. They had already developed that bond. I just felt like that episode 2 was a little rushed for that. I understand what they were doing with it, but it felt a little
I would
out
agree.
of place as far as the story went.
I 1,000% agree with that take. That's a good take.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that.
Unlike Rick's off-camera bad take for earlier in the show. I'm not going to alienate any viewers here, so I don't want to get unsubbed because of Rick's incompetence, so I'm not even going to bring it up. But
Does this have to do with Batman?
yes, this has to do with Batman. We'll keep it off stream, man. We'll keep it off. Like we'll keep it a
I'm not
secret.
trying to get death threats.
Yeah, we'll keep it a secret. All right.
Get enough of those already.
You don't want to hear that again, though. Don't want to hear it again. But yeah, I would totally agree. That episode, if that episode would have happened like 6 episodes in, and like there was that's like super true. Like they don't even meet her till like halfway through the first episode, and then like it's like you've been together for virtually no time.
Right. There's no connection that's even being developed.
It's just weird.
I understand exactly what they were doing. I understand why they did it. It is character development for them. It just felt a little rushed having it there in that episode.
Yeah, it would have definitely been more impactful had we seen them grow a bit more, even if they would have done it now as opposed to like then. Like if this episode was the second episode, it would have been a lot better. It would have made more sense, in all honesty. Like I totally agree. But I like it. I just hope I hope it stays consistent more than anything, because even if they don't focus on the stuff that I'd like them to focus on, I just hope they focus on some good stuff. Because still at this point, if I had to make any complaints to the show, is that like I just no clear direction on what the overall plot is going to be. Like, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that I don't know where it's going. Like, which is some would say is a good thing. But there's just a lot of open-ended things that I would like to know. Like, is it going to be Crosshair related? What's going on with that? With the Grand Moff Tarkin and the stormtrooper like stuff. Like, do that. I don't know, the Kimoni. There's a lot of stuff that they've presented. So I hope we know where it's going to actually follow here soon. Like, and they expand upon it more. So
right.
But guys, I think that's pretty much it. You guys got anything else you want to add?
You covered it.
All right, cool, man.